Okay, welcome, welcome everybody. Happy Thursday. Tonight's class is on Janu Sirsasana.
I like that.
Head to knee pose. Head to knee pose. So instead of doing an arm balance, we are doing that. That was the other choice in my mind today, is we were going to do an arm balance. So instead we will do this, which will actually be a nice warm up for, we'll do the arm balance maybe next week. We'll see. So Janu Sirsasana, head to knee pose. The thought that I have about this is that you can go into a position that's named like that in a very literal way, right? Where you're like, my goal is to get my head to my knee. Or you can go into it with the sort of metaphoric sort of understanding that as you continue to lengthen yourself into this pose, is your head will come closer to your knee, right? So there's the idea that there's a goal that we are trying to meet because that's what we think achievement is. And there's the idea that there's a process that we are involved in that allows us to go places that we couldn't go before, right? So you can take this concept of head to knee as I'm forcing my head to my knee, or I'm bowing, right? And the bowing is that more the surrender to what you're able to do at this moment, and surrendering to there being more that you may be able to achieve at some other point, but it's not defined, right? You can't put a line on the calendar or circle a date and say, on this day, my head will touch my knee, right? And the ridiculous thing is that physically we know that there may be a day where you're like, yeah, my head finally touched my knee. And then 2 days later, something will happen and it can't. It doesn't mean that the day that it did touch your knee didn't happen. And it doesn't mean that all those days where it doesn't touch your knee negates the ability for your body to go there, right? So this is the place where we are, is we can be in that very linear way of trying to achieve something harsh, defined, or we can be in that state of surrender, right? And the state of surrender is that if I keep bowing my head towards my knee, it's going to bring me somewhere. And I don't have to know where that is. I just have to keep bowing, right? So comfortable seat if you're not there already. Let the eyes close for a moment. Janu Sirsasana is an interesting combination of it being a hamstring forward fold, but also a hip opener. One-legged hip opener. So in that in-between place of it's neither just one of those things, it's both of those things. You keep bowing to it, you keep bowing to this body, and you keep bowing to this moment, and you will go somewhere. Let go of the idea that there's a somewhere that you're supposed to be. Deep breaths. At the end of the next exhale, bring the hands together in front of the heart center, palm to palm. We'll open with the sound of Om. Deep breath in. And let the eyes float open. Nice, you guys. You can release your hands, please. And then stay seated. Bring your hands to your knees or your thighs. So you're starting with a seated cat-cow. So as you inhale, begin to lift your chest. Tilt the pelvis slightly forward so your tailbone goes back and up. And then exhale, reverse that rounding, tipping back on the pelvis. Good. And then keep going, inhaling, lifting and lengthening, drawing the shoulders back, chest up. Then exhaling, curling and rounding, drawing yourself down and in. And I want you to have that focus that as you're moving, it's not just a flexing of the spine, but it's a rocking on your pelvis. There's a big part of every seated forward fold is the angle that our pelvis is able to maintain. The more vertical or almost neutral the pelvis is able to be, is the more access we have to our hamstrings, the more access we have to be able to extend the spine forward. If that pelvic position is not possible, then how far forward we come is completely dictated by the tightest muscle group. So whether that's in your back or it's in your legs or it's a little bit of both, doesn't matter, you're restricted. So you want to find the tilting forward and back on your pelvis, the rocking forward and back on your pelvis, so that you actually have a concept of when I say your pelvis is tilted forward, you can feel that arch in your lower back. Or when I say your pelvis is tilted backwards, you can feel the rounding and the tucking of your tail. All right, so I want you to be able to identify those two feelings in yourself, even if it's subtle. Good. Nice, you guys. And then slowly come back to stillness, please. Stretch your legs straight out in front of you. And keep the right leg extended. Bring your left knee up in towards your chest. And then step that foot over your right thigh. So left foot over right thigh. And then wrap the right arm around your left knee. Yep, and left hand comes back behind you. So it's a twist, but you're drawing that thigh up and in towards your belly, lifting your belly up towards that thigh and dropping your left butt cheek back down to the floor. So again, maintain that feeling of both sit bones reaching for the floor. Good. As I said, that's partially, Janu Sirsasana is partially a forward fold, but it's also a hip opener, right? So we want to open up the outer thigh, outer hip. Good. One more breath, lift yourself just a little taller. Good. And then keep the knee where it is, but release your twist and take both hands to the floor outside of your right hip. So you're coming into what we term the counter twist, just twisting the other way. So try and maintain that cross of the foot. Keep your left butt cheek on the floor, but walk your hands to the right. So both hands on the outside of that right hip. Good. Keep your chest lifted and open. Nice. So again, stretching the spine different way. If you've never actually let yourself feel the counter twist, it's maybe right here, you're like, oh yeah, there's something here. Good. And then slowly unwind and come back to center. Good. Stretch your left leg straight out in front of you. So just switch to the other side. Bring the right knee in. Step the foot over your left thigh. And then wrap the left arm around the knee. Take your right hand back behind you. So again, it's a hugging the knee in and lifting your belly up towards that thigh, root the right sit bone down. So you're trying to really draw down through that right edge of your pelvis as you draw the thigh up and in. So again, you're working the angle of the thigh bone in the hip socket. Nice. Good, you guys. If you can feel here that you're leaning slightly forward, try to do that. Bring your weight towards the front edge of your pelvic bones instead of falling back onto the back edge. Just try and lean slightly forward. And again, it gives you a little bit more length on the lower spine. Good. Beautiful. And then keep the knee where it is. Release the twist. Bring your hands to the outside, both hands to the outside of your left hip. So you're twisting in the opposite direction. Good. Keep that right butt cheek pressing down to the floor. Right sit bone down. Try and keep your knee angled up. And then walk the hands any amount to the left. So again, you feel the twist on the side body. Keep your right butt cheek down and back. So don't let it slide forward with you. Good. Right, we don't often think about it in Janu Sirsasana, but the pelvic bones should be in alignment with each other. They shouldn't be forward and back of each other. They should be in a straight line. So that practice of keeping that right sit bone pressing down and back as you're balancing your pelvis. Good. Bring yourself back to center, please. Unwind. Nice. Bring the bottoms of both feet together. Let your knees drop wide. And if you have a block here, you can use a block between the feet. Baddha Konasana. So start at the narrowest placement of your block. So placing the feet against the block, flat. Good. And then you're curling your toes back. The diamond of your pose can be as wide as you need it to be, as long as you need it to be. So heels moving away from the groin so that, again, you can place yourself towards that front edge of your sit bones, right? So if you need to adjust yourself, adjust. Maybe have a longer position so that you can sit on your pelvis in that more neutral position. Good. And then you're pressing your feet into the block. Good. And as you press your feet into the block, start to walk yourself forward, forward fold. Nice. Feeling as though you are, again, continuing to lift through that low place of your back. So it's not just where your back starts to round, it's just below where your back starts to round. Good. And like you're pressing your tailbone back and up. So it's like you're trying to arch your lower spine here, but in this position, it'll be hard to do. Nice. Keep squeezing the feet against the block. Good. And then walk yourself back up, please. You can either stay with this or take the block to the next widest setting. So from here, take it to here. Again, feet against the block. And you're doing the exact same thing. So pressing the feet into the block, make sure that your pelvic bones are still in that pretty much neutral alignment where you're not tipping back on your pelvis and you're not arching your spine. Good. And then start to walk yourself forward again. Nice. Keeping your feet pressing into the block so you keep those outer hips and thigh muscles awake. Good. And then really reach as though you're trying to pull your armpits away from the top of your hips. Good. So it gets you more into that sensation of it's actually the upper back or the middle back that has to extend here. It's not all about what the lower back can do. It's finding the strength of the middle back. Good. Nice, you guys. And then walk yourself all the way back up. And again, you can stay here if this feels like it's enough work on the hips, or go for the widest setting of the block, placing the feet against that. Again, adjusting the pelvis if you need to find that neutral alignment where you're not tipping back, you're not tipping too far forward, but you feel like you're right at that front edge of your sit bones. Good. And then same thing, pressing the feet into the block, start to walk yourself forward. Nice. And if it feels like it's a lot of work on the knees that's uncomfortable, is actually squeeze your knees up just a little bit. So coming almost out of the pose, out of the stretch of the pose and into the activity of the pose helps to relieve that moment of thinking we're at the edge of what we can do, right? Because it's true, we can't force stretch. But again, if you engage, squeeze those knees up, it'll take some of that pressure off. And then when you let the knees go, the stretch that happens there will be a much more effective one. Good. Walk yourself all the way back up. Nice job. Release the block, place it to the side, stretch your legs straight out in front of you. And then we're going to forward fold in the way that I would say that is the yin way of forward folding, which means don't flex your feet aggressively. Just let your feet be where they are. And then you're just going to walk yourself forward, forward fold, just hang. So you're not trying to get anywhere. Let your back round. Good. If your knees bend a little bit, that's okay. Let the feet go where they go. The idea is to let your spine hang, right? So you're not staying for very long. You can let the head drop if it feels good to do so. Let the shoulders release wide. Good. A little bit of activity in your navel just to support the roundness of your spine. Good. Keep breathing. And relax a little bit. Again, if you're not trying to get anywhere, it doesn't matter where you go or where you don't go. It's only that perception in our mind that there's somewhere that we should be that makes us unhappy with where we are. So I want you to just feel the places in your back that are in that moment of stretch. Maybe in your neck, maybe in the legs, maybe all of those places. Good. And then slowly round and bring yourself all the way back up. Good. And then I want you to bend your knees on purpose. So this time, drag your heels back, bend your knees. So you're still in position to forward fold, but you're going to bend your knees. Good. If you have a strap and you want to use it, you can, but I want you up on your heels. So feet are not flat, just on your heels, toes curled up. Good. And then start to walk yourself forward so that you can hold your ankles or your feet, whatever you can comfortably reach. So you're forward folding with your knees bent and hold on to something. So I want you to be able to hold your ankles or your shins or your feet, whatever you can find. If you're holding your feet, try and draw the baby toe edges of your feet a little wider. Press through the big toe mounds of your toes. So already that's going to change the stretch. Good. So you're still holding on to whatever you're holding on to, dragging your heels back. Feel like you are pushing your butt backwards, like you're trying to slide your butt back to the back of your mat. Good, but don't let your legs come to straight. Nice. So now keep your hold on your ankles or your feet. Straighten the arms, lift your chest up, really extend. So go as long as you can, holding onto your feet, onto your legs, press your butt back. Good. And then round your back and press your feet against your hands or your legs against your hands so you have a little bit of resistance. So drop your chin towards your chest, round your back, and again, pull your navel in and up. So Dana, don't let your feet fall open for this one. Keep them straight up and down, but round your back. Good. And then start to lift your spine long again, maybe straightening the legs a tiny bit more, moving your heels a little further out. Good. But you keep that connection that you're pulling on the legs or you're anchoring the legs to lift your spine. Good. And then exhale, curl in and round again, dropping the chin towards your chest. Good. And then as you uncurl again, straighten the legs a little bit more. So moving the feet further forward. If that means you can no longer hold your feet, that's okay. Hold your ankles instead. Deep breath in, long arms, long spine, straight arms. Good. And then exhale, curl in and round again, pulling the navel back and in. Keep the feeling that you are pushing your butt back in space. Good. And then uncurl again. So last time, take the legs any amount towards straight that you'd like. And again, keeping the knees bent might be what works better for your pelvis. So again, if it takes you out of that neutral pelvic alignment, maybe keep the knees bent. And then holding onto the ankles, deep breath in, long spine, straight arms. And then exhale, bend your elbows, round your back, dropping the chin towards your chest, moving the sit bones back. Keep your heels digging down, even if your knees are straight. So it should feel like there's that kind of instinct to bend your knees, even if your legs are straight. Good. And then slowly release, unwinding from that. Nice. Cross the ankles, please. Roll forward to hands and knees. You're like, please, no more hamstring. Sorry, it's a hamstring pose. What can I do? Good. Downward facing dog, please tuck your toes, lift your hips. And then bend your knees a lot in your down dog. So dropping the hips lower towards your heels, cat cow your spine in down dog. So again, working that feeling of even here in the air now, you're tilting your pelvis forward and back. Good. And you're using that tilt in conjunction with the rounding of your upper back, middle back. Good. Keep those knees bent as deeply as you can bend them. That's the ideal, right? So deeply bent knees gives you more access to your pelvis. Good. Nice, you guys. Round your back a lot. So come into that cat position. Good. And with your back still rounded, start to pull your thighs back in space. Lift the hips a little higher. And then as your heels soften down, lift the back of your throat in line with your arms and feel like your low rib cage pulls away from your thighs to help hug up into the back of your shoulder blades. So you're literally pressing the front of your rib cage up and in towards the back of the body. Good. And then start to walk your hands back towards your feet. And as you do, keep your hips lifted as high as you can. As your heels reach for the floor, bend your knees as needed. So you feel that lift through the low part of your belly. Good. So you're standing at the back of your mat. Heels find the floor. Good. Feet as wide as your hips. So maybe just a fist width or two apart. Take your right hand to your left ankle, please. Left arm to the sky. Good. Keep your inner thighs nice and wide. Again, a subtle bend to the knees here is not a bad thing as long as you are continuing to lift through the back of your pelvis. So keep that lift of your hips towards the sky, and it's okay if your knees are bent. Good. Release and switch, please. Coming back towards center. Left hand reaches for right ankle or shin. Right arm comes to the sky. Good. Try and feel here again, lengthening. So taking the arms to straight, trying to pull your armpit away from your hip. Lean your weight forward towards the balls of your feet. There you go. Nice. And then release all the way back to center, please. Again, hang for a moment, bend the knees, drop the head, drop the shoulders. Again, just like you did that seated forward fold, find that same feeling here that you're pressing into your heels and there's a subtle lift to the back of your pelvis, but not with the intention of straightening your knees, just with the intention of pulling your lower back into a position that feels a little bit more open. So the hanging point is as though you were hanging over like a monkey bar, right? No effort involved in the legs, just a lift through the lower back, lift through the lower belly. Good. And then start to walk your hands forward again, back towards downward facing dog. Beautiful. Right leg comes up and back behind you, down dog split. Good. Bend your knee, kick your heel in towards your butt. Stack the right hip on top of the left, open. Good. And then you're bringing that knee out wide to the right, so towards your right armpit. So you're going to bring it forward, like you're going to bring it towards your armpit. Your thigh parallels the floor. You still have your hips stacked. Good. But that inner thigh is lifted nice and high. That's it. Good. One more breath, parallel to the floor. So knee forward a little more, Dana. There you go. Good, and then stretch that leg all the way up and back behind you, down dog split. Turn those toes back down towards the floor. Excellent, and then take the right foot forward between the hands, lunge. Good, both hands inside your front foot, please. Do some circles with that hip, so move the pelvis. Good. Yeah, preparation for seated poses is a very interesting thing, because in order for those seated positions to be really easeful is we have to be able to comfortably sit, and sitting is not as simple as we think that it is, right? It's actually a difficult relationship with gravity to be sitting upright on the floor. So we actually have to do a lot of muscular kind of awakening in order for sitting to be a real possibility. Then you add hip opening and all that other stuff, and you know, suddenly there's a lot to do. Good, come back to stillness, please. Drop your back heel, baby toe parallels the back of your mat. Come into warrior two. So front knee is over the front ankle, shoulders come over your hips. Nice. Good, try to make sure here that your knee is able to come over your ankle with your thigh almost coming parallel to the floor. So if that's not possible, separate your feet a little longer. Good, and then even if it's just for literally a singular breath, bring your thigh parallel to the floor with your knee over your ankle. And then pull back on that left thigh towards the back of your mat. So you have that true feeling of pulling the thighs apart. Yeah, and then there's your glutes again, right? Good, left hand down the back thigh, right palm spins up and back, reverse warrior. So lifting through that right hip point. Still reaching to the back of your mat, start to straighten that right thigh. So like you're doing a reverse triangle. So straighten the right leg, keep reaching through the right side body, get taller, squeeze the feet towards each other. Good, and then come back up to center, arms wide, bend the right knee again, keeping that same feeling of lift through the side body. So as you bend the knee and you let the thighs go wide, you keep your side body nice and long, elevated. Good, and then bring the right forearm onto the front thigh, take your left arm over the ear, side angle. Same thing, even if it's for just a singular breath, bring that front thigh parallel to the floor, and then work that left thigh pulling back and wide. Good, and then extend through that left armpit, even if it's not through the left fingertips, reach from armpit to hip. Good, nice, you guys. And then squeeze the feet towards each other, bring the arms back up to warrior two, shoulders over the hips. Again, drop that left hand down the back thigh, right palm reaches up and back, reverse warrior. And start to straighten that right thigh again, still reaching to the back of your mat. So as the legs come straight, you're squeezing in and pulling up through that right side of your pelvis. Good, so again, balancing the pelvic bones. Good, come all the way back up to arms wide, shoulders over your hips, this time legs straight, preparation for Trikonasana. Just for a moment, bring your left hand so take your hands to your hips, literally. Good, and I want you to feel yourself lifting that right hip up a little higher into your right hand. So you feel a little pressure there. So that's already, you're tipping your pelvis back, Dana, so keep it level. Good, so right hip pushes forward and up, and then simultaneously push your left hip into your left hand. And you're like, what? I know. So the trick is that usually in triangles, we let that right hip dip automatically. We set our pelvis off center thinking that that's going to help us in the pose. But when we start that way, we actually compress the front hip, and then we have less room to actually move. So I want you to start with this feeling of level, good, and then keep this feeling of lifting that right hip up as high as you can, stretch the arms out wide. And now start to extend your rib cage forward, like you're coming up and over your pelvis, extend. And as you extend, that left hip is gonna push backwards, but your right hip is not collapsing. Make sense? Yes. Good, and then keep extending, keep that feeling of as much lift as you can, hip point off of your thigh, and let that right hand touch down to wherever it comes to rest, front leg, floor, or block. Left arm can come to the sky or stay on your hip, wherever it needs to stay. So at no point in your pose do I want you to go into that sort of lazy hip cock that we do, where we push the left hip back because we think that that's going to allow us to go further forward. It might in some cases, but by doing that, you're actually really jamming your right thigh up into your right hip. So try not to do that, right? Going lower in triangle is an extension of your side body and an openness of your hips. So it has very little to do with just having to force the pelvis into that angle. Good. Last breath as I continue to lecture you. Bend the right knee, please. Release the hands down to the floor. Good. Both hands are inside the front foot, so keep your back heel flat. So both hands inside the front foot. Walk to your left just a little bit. So again, you feel that little feeling of resistance as you keep your right knee pointing forward. You move your hands slightly to the left. Good. Nice, you guys. And then walk your hands all the way towards the center of your mat. Please straighten the right leg for a moment. Turn your toes. Prasarita Padottanasana. Good. Again, feeling the spread of your feet. So big toe mounds, baby toe mounds. Again, when you spread your toes, you help to activate all of those small muscles on the inner thighs, outer shins. If you don't use your toes, those muscles are maybe a little bit more sleepy. Good. And then you're going to turn your right toes out to 45 degrees. So not all the way back to the top of your mat, but halfway. And then start to bend the knee wide into a side lunge. So keep your hands center and just bend the knee. Let the knee go towards the second or third toe and keep that left inner thigh nice and wide. Good. And then try to curl into your low belly here, like you're going to try and take your tailbone facing down towards the floor. So it's like you're trying to tuck your tail. And as your tailbone starts to rotate down, your hip points start to rotate up. So again, like you're trying to create a vertical pelvis. So we're really curling into your low belly. You don't have to get lower to the floor for this to happen, but tuck that pelvis under. Good. And then let that go. Straighten the right thigh. Turn your toes forward again. Prasarita Padottanasana. So if you thought in that action that you were just trying to get deeper into the lunge, you missed my point. Right? The point was to work with your pelvis in that position. So just remind yourself that there's nowhere that you need to go. We're just fooling around with pelvic neutrality, right? Or trying to look for where there's availability in the pelvis that frees up the legs. Good. Walk yourself back towards the top of your mat, please. Turn the right toes forward, spin the left heel up, step back downward facing dog, just to give you something else to do. Good. Walk your hands back towards your feet. Yep. Keeping that lift through your pelvis. So don't let the legs be heavy, but let the heels anchor to the floor. Good. Heels find the floor. And then bend your knees, please. Keep your fingertips on the floor or blocks if you can. Bend your knees like you're coming into chair. But before you lift your shoulders, round your back a lot. Good. And then as your hips stay low, stretch your arms up alongside your ears. Pull your belly away from your thighs. Yeah, and keep lifting your shoulders up, 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 up as you drop your hips low, 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 low. Good, and feel that squeeze of your outer armpits towards the center of your back. So take your arms out wide, cactus arms. Good, and feel the armpits squeezing back. And now rotate your elbows forward. Good. And then straighten the arms, please. Release the hands down to the floor. Take the legs any amount back towards straight. Again, the knees might stay bent, but pull up through your lower back. Good. And then walk yourself forward again, back towards downward facing dog. Come all the way into plank pose. So come past dog into plank. Good. Bring your knees to the floor, please. Keep your butt lifted. And then slide the weight of your chest forward just a little bit more. Bend your elbows, drop your chest to the floor between your thumbs. Keep your butt up. So knees, chest, and chin. So toes are on the floor, knees are on the floor, chest is on the floor, butt is up. Arms are in what would be cobra arms. Good. So Joanne, just keep your toes on the floor. Yep. So you really got to work that squeezing the knees forward to lift your butt. Good. And then pull yourself forward all the way flat onto your belly. Point the toes back behind you. Rise up, cobra. Good. Nice, you guys. Drop those shoulders wide away from your ears. Nice, Beth. Good. And then come back, please, to hands and knees. Take a child's pose because you've been doing a lot of leg work. Good. There is always somewhere that you're trying to get to. You are likely to find lots of reasons why you are dissatisfied with where you are. The stories of the yogis is so often that there are those beings that have their, whatever their strangeness is, either physically or just in their personality, that makes them so uniquely suited to the path that they have in life, but makes them look awkward and weird and like they don't belong anywhere else. And if we bypass, right, if we bypass those things that naturally arise through us because we think we're supposed to have something else or be somewhere else, that's what causes our struggle, or it increases our feeling of struggle. So every tradition, the suggestion is you bow, surrender. You say, okay, maybe I don't know where I'm supposed to be. Maybe I don't know where I'm supposed to go. Maybe I don't know who I am. Okay, fine. Try and find out. Walk yourself back up to hands and knees, please. Downward facing dog as you are ready. So Janu, Sirsasana, I can force my head to my knee, or I can keep bowing until that is the natural place my head comes to rest. Left leg up and back behind you, down dog split. And even if my head never touches my knee, I know that that's what I'm bowing to. That's what I'm aiming at. Bend the knee, please kick your heel in towards your butt, stack the left hip on top of the right. And in yoga, we say that's often what's more important is where are you aiming? Doesn't matter how far your effort goes, is where are you aiming? Pull that knee wider towards your armpit so your thigh parallels the floor. So it's a little bit of a change of the orientation. So your knee is coming towards your left armpit, forward, forward, forward. Yep, it should feel like it's a lot more work on the hip. It is. Good. I know, one more breath. Keep it high. Really good, you guys. Good. And then stretch it back behind you, toes turning down towards the floor. Nice job. Step that foot forward between the hands, lunge. Good. Both hands inside the front foot, circles with that hip. Just realized, I'm like, oh, we did a lot on the first side. I get into this mode sometimes where I just like to do a lot on one side before going on to the other one. Yeah, can't help it. Good. Nice, you guys. Slowly come to stillness, please. And then drop that back heel, preparing for warrior two. So the baby toe parallels the back of your mat. Watch that your front knee is pointing towards second or third toe. Find your way up, shoulders on top of the hips. Nice. And again, try and find the position, even if it is not sustainable for very long, where you can have your knee directly over your ankle and your thigh, front thigh, parallel to the floor. So that might mean that you have to step your feet wider than you usually do. Good. And then let yourself go there. Nice. And then drop that right hand down the back thigh, left palm spins up and back, reverse warrior. Try to keep that front thigh parallel to the floor. If you could take it there, keep it there. And then lift that hip point a little higher. Good. And then straighten the front thigh, still reaching to the back of your mat. So it's like that reverse triangle. Lift that left hip point up off of your thigh. That's where you practice this concept of neutralizing your pelvis, pelvic bones. Good. Come all the way back up to arms wide. Nice. Bend the front knee again, back to warrior two. Again, letting the thigh come parallel to the floor if you can. And then left forearm onto front thigh, right arm over the ear, side angle. Again, trying to maintain thigh parallel to the floor. Back thigh pulls up and away. That's how you don't put all of the stress on that front thigh. You got to squeeze your feet together, pull back on the back thigh. Good. And then reach long from your armpit. Pull that armpit away from your hip. Good. Nice. Bring it back up to warrior two, please. Shoulders over the hips. Good. Right hand drops down, back thigh, left palm spins up and back. Beautiful. Straighten the front thigh again. So again, that reverse triangle, lifting up through that left hip point. So the reason, right, why I'm obsessing over you having the thigh parallel to the floor is I'm trying to give you as much actual access to your pelvis as possible, so that in that position, you have the best ability to rotate the thigh bone where it needs to rotate so that you can extend, either in side angle or triangle or anything else, right? So there's a point to it. Come all the way back up, arms wide, keep the legs straight. And then again, for a moment, take your hands to your hips and start with the front hip, because this is the one that naturally we have a tendency to drop in this position. So lift your left hip forward and up, exaggerate it. I promise that what you think is your hip hiked up high is your pelvis level. Promise. And now at the same time, push your right hip into your right hand. So push that back hip into the back hand. Good. So that feeling of trying to push wide through your thighs and through your pelvis is what you want to maintain. And then stretch your arms out, letter T. Good. Triangle pose. Start to reach your left rib cage forward, like you're extending up and over that thigh bone. So you're not collapsing the hip down and in, but you're continuing to lift up. And then you're actually suctioning that thigh bone up and into the hip socket. So it's got a hollow to come into. Good. And then keep reaching and let that left hand touch down. Whatever it needs underneath it, have it. Right arm to the sky or hand at your hip. Don't let your legs get lazy once you're in the pose. Once you're in that supported position, you're like, oh, my legs don't have to work anymore. Keep trying to find that lift of the front edge of your left sit bone. Sorry, your left pelvic bone. Draw that left thigh up and in. Good. You got it, guys. Try not to lock your knees just because there's one more thing to pay attention to, right? Don't forget to breathe. Good. Bend that left knee, please. Release the hands down to the floor. Keep that back heel flat, both hands inside the front foot. Good. Walk your hands just a little bit to the right. Keep your knee pointing straight ahead. Good. So your hips should still be in line with your ankles here. So it's a little bit of a trick that right thigh, your back thigh has to move forward in space for that to happen. So it's like you're wrapping that left sit bone back and around, left butt cheek back and in. Right thigh is going to come forward. I mean, forward toward the long edge of your mat, not necessarily the top of your mat. Good. Nice, you guys. Now walk all the way to your right, please. Straightening that left leg. Turn your toes. Prasarita Padottanasana. Again, spreading your toes wide so that you have that full engagement of the feet, which helps to engage more of the legs. Good. And even here, there's always the opportunity to remind yourself that you are bowing, that you are surrendering to what your body feels right now. Not what you want it to feel. Not where you want it to be, but where it is. And that the greatest empowerment is in that surrender, right? Because if I'm really here with the way things are, is I don't have to be spending so much energy wishing things were different. I don't have to deal with that level of unhappiness. Good. Turn your left toes back to 45 degrees, so not all the way to the top of your mat, just halfway. And then start to bend the knee into that side lunge. So keep your hands roughly center, so don't bring your chest with you, but bend that knee, pointing the knee at the second or third toe. And then remember, the point here is not to try and get deeper into the lunge per se. The point is to work with your pelvis. So start to drop your sit bones, drop your tailbone down, scoop your low belly like you're tucking your tail, drop your seat, and try and lift the front of your pelvic bones up. So it's like you're trying to make your pelvis vertical in this position, pointing straight up and down. It's going to be really hard to do. It is. But that's what we're playing with, right? Is finding where there's space to do that. Good. Nice, Joanne. Good, Lorraine. Really good. Awesome, you guys. Start to straighten the legs again, turning the left toes forward. Prasarita Padottanasana, straight legs, wide legs, forward fold. Good. And then hold opposite elbows here so the legs hold you. Again, you might have a subtle bend to the backs of the knees. And then let yourself sway either side to side or make little figure eights with the upper body, whichever one feels more exciting to you. Good. And then release yourself back to center. Please bring your hands to your hips, come all the way up to stand. Good. Try it this way, just with as wide as your feet are, turn your feet out to 45 degrees, both feet. And then don't get scared, but bend your knees and come into high squat where you let your thighs come parallel to the floor. Everyone gets a little scared. We're like, oh, usually I heel toe my feet closer together. Yeah, you make it harder for yourself. Good. Again, I want you to try to even round into your back a little bit so that you have that sensation of dropping through your tailbone, lifting your hip points up and widening your knees. It's not comfortable or easy, but try to take that arch out of your lower spine, even if that means that your shoulders curl forward. I'm okay with that. Good. Everything doesn't have to be vertical. I just want you to focus on your pelvis being vertical. Press into your heels. Good. And then come all the way back up. Excellent job, you guys. Very good. All right, grab a block, please, and then step yourself to the top of your mat in whatever fantastic way you want to do that. No choreography for that. Good. Place the block between the upper thighs, please. Good. And just setting the feet parallel, so like a supported Tadasana, so just using the block between the legs, mountain pose. So you're finding your feet, you're finding that feeling of give a soft bend to your knees and then feel as though you are trying to push that block back behind you. The joke is we always say is like your legs are a Pez dispenser and the block is the Pez, right? Is you're trying to actually push that block behind you. Good, and a subtle bend to the knees. Good, and then you're pressing through your heels. And then from the top of your pelvic bones, you are lifting up. So feel that lift of your pelvic bones. Your low belly is going to draw in, but your pelvic bones lift up off of your thighs as your tail starts to lengthen down. And then you're softening your ribs in. Take your hands to your heart center, please. Good. Shrug your shoulders up towards your ears so that you feel your armpits lift. And then stay as long in your side body, but drop the shoulders wide. And then continue to lift from your armpits and start to rotate your heart towards the sky like you're doing a standing camel pose. Good. So the tops of your thighs keep moving back. The top of your pelvic bones keep lifting up. And you're drawing from your armpits like someone's hooked underneath your arms. They're lifting up through your side waist, through your side body. Tilt your sternum up to the sky. Good. Keep tilting, keep tilting, keep tilting. Like you're just going to keep going back. Good. Little bit of a bend to the knees if you need. Tops of the thighs back. Keep lifting, keep lifting, keep lifting, keep lifting. Tops of your thighs back. Low belly drawing in. Lift those pelvic bones. Nice. And then feeling that squeeze of your navel and your back, bring yourself all the way back up to center. Nice. And then keep the block between the upper thighs. Bring the hands down to the floor, forward fold. And keep that same sensation of like you're trying to push that block back behind you. And your tailbone, your sacrum reaches up towards the sky. And then we'll just wait for the siren to finish its thing. Good, you guys. Place the block to the side, please. Step yourself back to downward facing dog. Good, and then drop down to hands and knees. Good, walk your hands back up onto your hips. This is great in between the... It'll be done in a second. All right, stretch your right leg out wide to the right, please. Good. Heel in line with your left knee and then turn your toes to face up. So your toes are up. So you're up on that right heel. So that might mean that you have to adjust the foot again so that your heel is in line with your knee. Good. Again, pelvic bones in the same line with each other. So the top of that left hip has got to go slightly back. Right hip has got to spin slightly forward. Nice. All right. Stretch your arms out wide. And then you're sliding the right arm down the right leg, left arm over the ear. Gate pose. Good, but purposefully in this position, because again, this is what's helping to create that rotated, one-sided rotated position where the other side is neutral, just like Janu Sirsasana. So draw the top of that left hip back and wide. Keep drawing it back and wide. I know, keep drawing it back and wide. Even more, Dana. Even more, Kristen. Yep, there you go. Good, even more, everybody at home. Nice. Come all the way back up to center, please. Good job. Release and switch to the other side. So nothing complicated. Or maybe that was complicated enough. I don't know. But you see how difficult that is, right? Is that you're so focused on trying to get into this side stretch that you're not even paying attention to that leg that is supporting you. So you don't notice when that hip starts to spin forward, right? So the point is to start to notice that, because you do this in, I guarantee, every single pose that is one-legged, right? Is that the pelvis goes out of alignment. So we want to try and maintain as much of that stable, neutral position as we can. So up on the left heel, heel in line with your right knee, and your pelvic bones, again, should be roughly in the same line with each other. Up and down this way, they should be level, and also forward and back, they should be roughly level. Good. Stretch your arms out wide, slide the left hand down the left leg, right arm over the ear. And then just realize that this is the automatic, natural, 100% every single person does this. That as you start to lean to the left, that right hip is going to start to spin forward. Draw it back and wide. Yep.
I can't go as far.
I can't go as far, damn it. What did I say first thing? Is there's nowhere you're supposed to be. You can practice this pose to try and get somewhere, get lower towards that leg, or you can practice this pose for your pelvic stability. Which one matters to you? Or which one matters more? Because of course they can both matter. And of course there's a time when you just don't care and you just want to get that side stretch. Today, I want you to focus on the pelvis. There you go. And then bring it all the way back up. Nice, you guys. Come back to hands and knees. Yeah. Do a little cat and cow. I know your outer hips are talking, right? I know you never thought of gate pose as an outer hip pose, but it is. Good, you guys. Yeah, again, you're just tilting the pelvis forward and back. We're doing this as a form of now release, because you just used a lot of those big outer hip muscles to do a lot of work, stabilize and all of that. Give them a little bit of a release. Good. Nice. And then slowly let that go. Please press back. Child's pose. Bring the hips back towards your heels. Knees can go wide if you'd like, or see what it feels like to keep the knees more parallel. You might get a completely different sensation doing it that way. Right? Knees wide is not always what is most accessible for our hips. So sometimes the more parallel position allows us to get deeper into the pelvis, the actual pelvis, lower back, than having the knees wide. So it's just something to notice for yourself. Good. Then find your way coming all the way back up. Good. And again, a little bit of an awkward transition, but I want to do it this way. So come onto your backs. Again, if this was a vinyasa class, I'd be like, awkward transition, but it's not a vinyasa class. So, all right, cross your right ankle over your left thigh. I thought about having you do this sitting up, but again, I want you to have more of a neutral pelvis. So it's easier here. Right ankle over left thigh. Lift your left shin parallel to the floor. Reach through to hold that leg. Good. Flexing the feet. So here we often talk about, drawing the left thigh or the bent knee in towards the chest, or we talk about trying to pull that the knee that is externally rotated wider. So the only place that I want you to focus is taking the top of your right thigh away from your belly. Yep, that's it. Is wherever your knee goes, it goes, but focus on taking the top of your right thigh away from your belly and keep your ankle connected to your left thigh. Good, Dana, I would actually cross your ankle a little bit more. There you go. And then again, put a little bit more weight on the left side of your sacrum, because your pelvic bones are, again, automatically, not your fault, but automatically not balanced. And important, right? Your imbalances are not your fault. They're just realities that are there. And either you accentuate those imbalances by playing into them, or you do what you can to create more harmonious relationship. Good. Nice, you guys. So release the hold on that thigh. Bring your left foot down to the floor with the right ankle still stacked. And then you're dropping your legs over to your left. So that right foot is going to come flat to the floor. Both knees go with you, but the right foot is going to come as much flat to the floor as it can. Good. And then you're working, that right shoulder is wide. You're trying to draw that right side sacrum back and down to the floor. So almost like that first position that we did where your knee was angled across your body. It's the same thing here. So you're drawing that right butt cheek down towards the floor. Your knee is going to be at that angle, but you're trying to point that knee as much as you can up toward the ceiling. So right knee angles up, foot presses to the floor. Good. And if having the foot cross completely over the thigh doesn't work in this position, you can place that foot to the inside of the left thigh. A little bit gives you a little bit more ability to rotate and work with the lower back. Good. I know it's a weird position, but honestly, what yoga position is not a weird position? They're all weird. Nice, you guys. One more breath. Good. And then come on out, please. Coming back to center, crossing your right thigh all the way on top of your left. Stack the knees. Lift your feet up off the floor. Separate the feet. Reach for your ankles or your shins. So Gomukhasana, right leg over left. Yep. And all of this for a seated forward fold. Trying to drop your head to your knee. And realistically, we really should have been doing 1,000 more cobras to stretch your back, but that's all right. Come on and unwind those legs. Go to the other side. So take your left ankle over your right thigh. So start with that figure 4 position. So bending the right knee, reach through to hold the thigh if you'd like, or again, you can just let the legs do their thing. And your focus here is to be moving the top of your left thigh away from your belly. That's it, because in focusing on that, you're actually then activating the only muscles that really matter in this position. And you're working again more with what your pelvis is doing and less worried about the end result, which is, where is my knee? Who cares? So you want to keep that anchored feeling of the lowest part of your pelvis rooting down to the floor, a little bit more weight on the right side. And you're just moving the top of your left thigh away from your belly. Good. Everything in yoga is effort up to a point, and then we're asked to let go. So it's knowing your direction, it's knowing your motivation, it's knowing where you're coming from. And then it's surrendering that where you land is not up to you. And where you are is essentially where you are always supposed to be. That's where you're beginning. That's what you're moving through in order to continue in the direction that you aimed. But completion and achievement are not tied to each other. Good. Release that thigh, please. Take your right foot down to the floor. Keep the ankle stacked, and then you're letting your legs drop to the right. So the left foot is ideally coming flat to the floor. And then again, you're starting with, as you're coming into this, trying to draw the top of that left side sacrum back and down towards the floor. So you want to let your knees fall all the way to the side, but then you're trying to almost untwist or counter twist in the opposite direction. Good. And again, that foot can come to the inside of the thigh instead of across the thigh if necessary. Good. Yeah, so try to let that right knee stay relaxed to the floor, Lorraine, if you can. You can even put the block underneath it if you need. There you go. And then just try to bring that left side sacrum back and down. There you go. That works. You can even just wrap the legs like you would for eagle if it feels like it's not doing what it's meant to do. Good. Just take the other leg on top though. Yeah, and then come into the twist that way. There you go. There's a million different ways to work with your body. You guys never get stuck on just one. Good. Take one more breath. And then slowly unwind. Come back to center, please. Good. And then cross the left thigh all the way on top of the right, separating the feet. Reach for your ankles or your shins. You're coming into Gomukhasana, left leg on top of right. Good. Beautiful. And then unwind your legs, please. Squeeze your knees in towards your chest and then curl into a little ball here and just roll forward and back. A way of massaging the lower spine, massaging the middle back, engaging the lower abdominals. Good. And I won't pull the trick that I pulled the other day and tell you to come up into chair. Don't worry. Just roll yourself up to sit. Good. Nice job. And then stretch your legs straight out in front of you. And again, if you need to have a blanket underneath your seat for that neutral pelvic position, then make sure you have what you need underneath you. So coming to sit with your legs out in front of you, both legs straight to begin. Find level pelvic bones, right? So your right and left side are in line with each other and you're just towards that front edge of your sit bone. So the back of your pelvis is as neutral and vertical as it can be. Keep your right leg straight, bend your left knee, bring the bottom of the left foot into your right thigh without hiking your left hip back. Yup. Keep those pelvic bones in the same line. So we automatically try and swing that left hip back in this position. So keep it forward. Good. And then arms to the sky, please. Little bit of a twist towards that right leg. So turn towards the right leg. Good. And then bow forward. So Lorraine and Joanne, you guys have the opposite leg. Yep. So right leg is straight, left knee is bent. There you go. So it's a subtle twist of the lower body, side body, and then it's a bowing. Right? So let yourself extend as long as you can from your lower spine, like you're trying to send those sit bones back. But then when you've reached the end of that amount of effort, is let your head hang. Sometimes that's what it means for your head to reach your knee. Because realistically, for most of us, if you were in a super deep forward fold, is your head would be forward of your knee. So what does it even mean? My goal is to bring my head to my knee. Keep that right leg awake. So you're pressing down through the heel. And again, that left foot, press it into the right thigh or feel like it's in Baddha Konasana. So you might even squeeze that left knee up slightly. And then press your sit bone down. Good. And then slowly bring yourself all the way back up. Nice. Now purposefully change the position. So keep that heel or keep that foot to the inside of the leg. Now turn your pelvis on an angle so you're in the half straddle. So you bring your left knee further back. So it's like that right leg is in a half straddle and you're moving your left knee wider. You got it. So it's just the second version of Janu Sirsasana. It's a wider right leg, wider straight leg. There you go. And then you're going to walk that right hand to the inside of your right ankle. Yep. Turn your left rib cage open. Take your left arm up over the ear or hand to your lower back or behind your head. Good. And keep your sit bone, left sit bone rooted down to the floor. Good. The second version of Janu Sirsasana. You're like, my head's not anywhere near my knee. Deep breath in. And then start to turn your belly, turn your chest towards that right leg. Again, with the intention of maybe I can bow deeply enough that my head will come to my knee. Maybe not, but my head is in the direction of my knee and that's good enough. And we say energetically that when we're bowing, we're not really bowing to the physical spaces, we're bowing to whatever that energy is that we're surrendering to. So it can be your version of God. It can be your version of love, compassion. Even if it's this body and this mind, is just surrendering to right now, is you're surrendering into what's big. Takes away that feeling of being stuck in smallness when we surrender to what's big. Good. Turn your belly just a little bit more. Yes. And then slowly come all the way back up. Nice job. Take both legs straight out in front of you again. Say, ah, Feels so weird to have my pelvic bones in line. All right, we'll try the second side. So your left leg is now going to stay straight. Bend your right knee, bring the bottom of the foot to the inside of the left thigh. Let your knee go wide. Keep your pelvic bones in line. So everything's facing straight ahead, this first one. Good. So already you're like, but it feels better to pull my right hip back. I know, don't do it. Pull your right hip forward. Good. This is the same position you'd be in tree pose, believe it or not, right? Same problem happens there too. All right, take your arms up to the sky. Press that right foot into your left leg. So again, there's engagement there. Do a little twist of your belly to the left and then bow over that leg, please, extended leg. Keep your right leg awake here though. Don't just let it flop open to the side. Keep your foot pressing to the inside of the leg. Good. Keep that sensation of your sit bone rooting down, but it might actually feel more balanced to pull your knee slightly up. Right? By doing that, you give more access for your pelvis to tilt, and with more access with your pelvis to tilt, your spine can go a little longer. Your head actually drops closer to your knee. Good. Just don't let the toes turn out, Kristen, on that left foot. Go. Nice, you guys. And then bring yourself all the way back up and now widen the position. So start to draw that right knee wider to the right. So you're more in that half straddle position. So left leg is a little wider. Good. Like you were coming into a wide-legged thing, but you're keeping the right knee bent. Good. Slide your left hand towards your inner left ankle or heel. Turn your rib cage open to the right. Take the right arm over the ear or hand behind your head or at the lower back, wherever it needs to rest. And keep your right sit bone rooting down to the floor. And don't complain that then you can't go as far. Keep your right heel dragging in towards your groin, pressing into the floor. If it can't touch your thigh anymore, that's okay, but keep the foot rooted down and maybe even squeeze the knee up and press your sit bone down. Good. Now curl into your belly, maybe even rounding into your low back. Turn your belly towards that left leg. So again, turn your head towards your knee. Let the hands frame your leg, frame your foot. Good. And if it helps to come completely out of the pose and come back in, straight across that thigh or straight towards that leg, then do that. It's a tricky transition to go from sideways to forward. Keep your sit bones rooted down. Good. Remember, you are bowing into right now, whatever the bigness is of right now. Your head touches your knee. Your head is nowhere near your knee. Knee is an abstract place. Slowly walk yourself all the way back up. Nicely done, you guys. Good. Stretch the legs out in front of you. Give them a little bit of a shake. And then find your way in your own way onto your backs again. Good. You guys in the room, if you want to do heads towards the center of the room for Shavasana, you're welcome to do that. Before you come into Shavasana, bend your knees, please. Plant your feet and move yourself in and out of bridge pose just a little bit. So you can add the arms here if you'd like. So as you inhale, lift your hips, stretch your arms up alongside your ears. Good. And then as you exhale, drop the hips and relax the arms. So if you like that arm movement, stay with it. If not, you can just do some of that lifting up into bridge and then releasing. This is a way of, again, releasing the lower back, re-engaging the glutes, re-engaging those big muscles so that as you relax, right, your lower back can really relax. Your lower spine can really find where its balance is, because we don't always know where it is. We try. But real release, real balance happens largely outside of our control, not by our direction. Good. Just move yourself a couple more breaths in and out of bridge. Probably feels good to do it after all the forward folding. Good. Next time your hips find the floor, let them stay. Then draw the knees in towards the chest, please. Bring the bottoms of the feet together, knees go wide. So it's a Baddha Konasana, but don't drop your feet to the floor. Just keep your knees angled up towards your armpits, your heels dropping in towards your groin. So your lower back should be really well anchored to the floor. And you shouldn't feel like there's that falling forward of your knees. So pull your knees in and up. Good. So Dana, pull your knees up more, angled up more. There you go. So now you can actually feel more openness through the inner thighs. Good. Nice, you guys. One more breath. Draw those inner thighs a little wider and feel your lower spine rooting down to the floor. Excellent. Good. And then bring the knees all the way together, please. Scoot your hips over to the left. Drop your knees to the right with the knees stacked. Again, the idea here is that this twist, this version of a twist, is you are stacking your pelvic bones. So again, practicing having your pelvis in neutral alignment. So focus on that you truly have that left hip stacked all the way on top of your right. And if that means that your shoulder doesn't come as close to the floor, swaha. We say, so it is. I give it up. I can practice for my whole body, or I can practice because in a way where I think that there's the pose that's supposed to be instead of the one that is actually happening, the one that's actually unfolding, the one that actually is my body in balance. Come on back to center, please. Scoot your hips over to the right, drop your knees to the left. And trust me, I know that that's a frustrating process. We're like, no, I just want to do it the way I want to do it. It's fine. But it's very easy when we practice that way of trying to make the pose happen, that we end up doing things that actually accentuate those imbalances in our bodies. And then we wonder why injuries happen. And we say, oh, but I do so much yoga. How come I got hurt? Like, well, if every pose is a little bit of imbalance, imbalance, imbalance. So we learn what harmony is. And we learn what surrendering to our actual body's needs are. That's the real practice. Poses are accidental. They're what we're aiming for. And where we land, we surrender to that. Come on back to center, please. Again, squeezing the knees in towards your chest. Hug forehead up to meet your knees. Good. And then slowly release, extending the legs out in front of you, arms alongside you. Again, making sure that if it feels good to have a prop underneath your knees, that you have one, either a rolled blanket or a bolster or a pillow. My joke these days is a dog, a small child, whatever you can put under there. Even Shavasana with your knees bent is perfect. And then can you feel yourself with each breath surrendering a little bit more to just right now, the bigness of right now. Very gently bring the awareness back to your breath. Let your body begin to stretch, move, whatever ways serve it well. And as you're ready, draw the knees in towards the chest and roll to the right side. Taking a moment before you push the floor away, come back to an upright seated position. Hands coming to rest instead of in front of the heart, just hands on the knees or the thighs, palms up or down, your choice. Because ultimately we practice, in yoga we say, we practice for the ability to sit. And not just to sit comfortably to meditate or any of that, but to be able to just be in the moment that we are without trying to escape. That's what it means to sit. So forward folds are a funny pose because when we do them in the beginning of class is we think they're just preparation for something more, so we rush through them. And when they're at the end of class is we think that we're done with effort, so we don't pay much attention. And maybe we're getting quieter, but we don't actually practice them in a way where we're trying to be in them, where we're trying to be where they are, as they are. So that aspect of surrender is the most important one, whatever pose you were doing, a very active one or what seems like a very simple seated one. But the element of surrender is what allows us to be able to sit. I am here where I am, and whatever I have aimed for, if this is where I've arrived, this is where I'm supposed to be. And if I'm not trying to escape, then I don't have that sensation of what we call suffering. I don't wish for this to be something other than what it is, or even if I do wish for it to be different. My desire to escape doesn't take me away from just this, just sitting. So Janu Sirsasana, your head may never touch your knee. But if you are bowing always to where there is the possibility of something bigger, a place where you can land, and you're aiming in a direction where you wish to be, then wherever you land is perfection. Completion is not achievement. Completion is guaranteed. Achievement is accidental. So either leaving the hands where they are or bringing the hands back together in front of the heart if you choose. We'll close with the sound of Om. A deep breath in. Sliding the thumbs to the space between the eyebrows. Namaste.
Namaste.
Thank you guys so much. Have a great rest of your night, a great rest of your week until I see you again. Now, don't be scared because now you think that next week is going to be a hard arm balance. Might be, might not. I don't know. Depends on how I feel.
Might be.
Have a good night, you guys.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you.